the number 10 spot, we have the Frost Giants. The legend of the Frost Giants in Maine is a popular story that has been passed down through countless generations. According to the legend, the Frost Giants of Maine were these tall, ghostly figures that appear in the woods on cold winter nights. They're said to be covered in frost and ice, and they roam the forest looking for victims to freeze and murder. The legend of the Frost Giants is said to have originated with indigenous Wabanaki people who lived in Maine for thousands of years. The Wabanaki believed that the Frost Giants were powerful spirits who could control the weather and bring cold and snow to the land. They also believe the Frost Giants were protectors of the forest, and they say that they would punish those who harm the land or its inhabitants. Many people who lived in the rural areas of Maine still believe in these Frost Giants, claiming to have seen them wandering the woods on cold winter nights. Some even say that the Frost Giants can be heard howling in the distance on some nights, but ultimately their mystery will be forever frozen in time. Number 9, the Kennebec Arsenal. The Kennebec Arsenal was a military arsenal and armory located in Augusta, Maine. The arsenal was built in 1828 and was used for the manufacture, storage, and repair of weapons and munitions for the United States Army. It was in operation until 1894 when it was decommissioned and the equipment and weapons were moved to other locations. However, visitors to this place claim that it has been haunted ever since closing down. Many claim that the arsenal is haunted by the ghosts of the soldiers who passed away while working there. According to the legend, these ghosts can be heard marching and drilling in the empty halls of the arsenal, and sometimes their figures can be seen wandering the grounds. Another legend associated with this place is that it's haunted by the ghost of a woman who was killed in a tragic accident inside of the arsenal. Locals say that the woman's ghost can be heard crying and moaning inside, and that her ghostly figure can sometimes be seen sitting inside of these halls. Overlooking the Kennebec River, this building is still a favorite for hikers, but don't be surprised if you encounter one of their many ghosts they have here. Number 8, the Pawnalboro Ghost. The Pawnalboro Ghost is a spirit that is said to haunt the old courthouse in the town of Pawnalboro. The story of the Pawnalboro Ghost is thought to have originated in the late 1700s, back to the times when the courthouse was still in use. At the time, the courthouse was the site of many trials and executions, and it was said that the ghosts of those who were wrongfully convicted or unfairly sentenced were returned to haunt this building. And honestly, if I was in the same position, I would too. Over time, the legend of the Pawnalboro Ghost grew, and people began to make claim that they had seen the ghostly apparition of a man inside of the courthouse. Some claim to have seen him standing in the courtroom, while others have seen him wandering the halls and even appearing in the windows of the building. Nowadays, the building hosts haunted tours, so if you want to see the man everyone is talking about, this might be your best opportunity. Number 7, the Old Orchard Beach Monster. The Old Orchard Beach Monster is a mysterious sea creature that is said to have been sighted off the coast of Old Orchard Beach. Sightings of this monster are thought to have originated in the early 1900s when the beach was a popular summer destination for tourists and locals alike. At the time, people would go swimming in the ocean, and some claim to have seen a strange serpent-like creature swimming in the waters near the beach. Over time, the legend of the Old Orchard Beach Monster grew, and the people began to claim that they had seen the creature on multiple occasions while visiting this place. Some claimed to have seen it swimming near the shore, while others said they have seen it lurking in the deeper waters off the shore. Many decomposed whales wash ashore here as well, which many crowds of people believe that the serpent water is responsible for them. However, no physical evidence proves its existence or even no bite marks, so this one may look like a little bit of a bust. Number 6, the Kennebec Inn. The Kennebec Inn is a historic inn located in Kennebec, Maine that has more than a few guests checking out as ghost believers. The inn was built in 1799 and has been in operation for over 200 years. And as we see, the patterns tend to tell us that the longer a hotel is up and running, the more time there is for a few ghosts to call it their home. The Kennebec Inn is just one of those places. Visitors claim that the inn is haunted by the ghost of a former guest who passed away here. According to the legend, the ghost of a woman can be seen walking the halls of the inn and also can be seen moving objects around and throwing them at people. As well, a former innkeeper has passed away in a fire at this hotel, and his ghost is seen spotted by many guests who claim to see her charred up body inside of the lobby. The most notorious room in this inn is room 17, where the lights will just turn on in the middle of the night. Although I don't really know if this is just scary or really annoying. And many guests have opted to not clean the room after encountering things out of the ordinary. So guess you know what to do next. Book a stay here. In the hump of our list, we have Seguin Island Lighthouse. The Seguin Island Lighthouse is a historic lighthouse located on Seguin Island off the coast of Maine. The lighthouse was built in 1795 and is one of the oldest lighthouses in the United States. With that being said, also considered one of the most haunted lighthouses in the United States as well. The lighthouse has a rich history and has been the subject of many stories and legends. One such legend is that of a ghost of a former lighthouse keeper named Isaac Dunham, who haunts the lighthouse to this day. According to the legend, Dunham drowned in the waters near the island after going out on a routine walk, and now his ghost haunts the lighthouse and the waters around it. They say he appears to visitors who walk near the lighthouse or island, and other times his face will be seen poking out of the water, watching your every single move. Another legend associated with this island is that it's haunted by the ghost of a woman whose husband was murdered on this island. The legend says that the woman's ghost can be heard crying and moaning at night, and that her ghostly figure can be seen walking around asking visitors where her husband is. Number 4, the ghost ship of the Damariscotta. The ghost ship of the Damariscotta is a ghostly vessel that appears on the Damariscotta River. This ship is said to be the ghost ship of a pirate ship that was sunk by the British Navy many years ago. This occurred in the early 1850s when the 210-foot ship named the Ellen Austin was strolling through the river on their way to New York. After a few days, their ship got lost in a heavy mist, and when they came out, they seem to have just vanished out of thin air. Then 2 days later, their ship was back, and when an investigation was done, it was found that no crew was on board. Another odd thing was that everything looked perfectly normal, like there wasn't any sort of panic or whatever. However, none of the ship's logs were found, only giving its story more mystery. Nowadays, residents around the river claim to see a ghostly ship in the distance, usually when it's foggy, pointing out responsibility to the Ellen Austin, saying it's on its way to its watery grave. Number 3, the Mothman of Maine. Everyone should know the Mothman, but it's said that this creature originated from the state of Maine. The Mothman is a mysterious creature that is said to have been sighted in the woods of northern Maine. Sightings of the Mothman started in the 1960s when a group of hunters claimed to have seen a large winged creature in the woods near Moosehead Lake. The creature was described as being humanoid in appearance with glowing red eyes and wings that were covered in fur. Over time, more sightings of the Mothman occurred and the legend just kept on growing. Some people claim to have seen the creature flying through the skies over northern Maine, while others have seen it lurking in the woods or even in their own backyards. Regardless, the number of witnesses to the Mothman has led this creature to become an international sensation. Or maybe it just uses wings to fly to other locations. Well, in that case, Number 2, Fort William Henry. Fort William Henry was a British fort located in the town of Pemaquid, Maine. The fort was built in 1692 and was used to protect the town and its residents from attacks by the French and their Native American allies. The fort was the site of a famous siege in 1757 during the French and Indian War and was eventually captured and burned by the French. However, the event that made this whole place cursed happened in 1696 when Native American chief Tacalexis was hung by the fort. Local legend has it that he haunts a historic site to this day. Today, Fort William Henry is a popular tourist attraction and is open to the public for tours. The fort has been restored to its original appearance, but guests come out claiming to see the spirit walking the grounds, and others claim that his neck is bent in the same way he got hung. Number 1, the Blackwoods Road. Blackwoods Road is a remote, desolate road that is said to be haunted by the ghosts of those who passed away there. The legend of the Blackwoods Road is thought to have originated in the early 1900s when the road was a fairly new and poorly maintained thoroughfare. At the time, the road was known for its many sharp turns and steep inclines, which made it treacherous to navigate. Many people who use the road would often get lost or stranded, and some even passed away in the many accidents that occurred here. Eventually, as the casualties racked up, people started to believe that the Blackwoods Road was cursed and also was haunted by the ghosts who have passed away there. This is because some who've driven down this road have claimed to have seen strange lights or heard eerie noises coming from the woods along the road. Others have reported seeing a figure stand in front of their car before completely disappearing just upon impact. At number 10 spot, we have Black Aggie. Although this statue is beautiful, visitors claim that many spirits crowd around it as well, some believing that the statue is alive altogether. The brown statue belonged to General Felix Agnes and was formerly placed in Druid Ridge Cemetery in 1926, where it stood strong for 40 years until it was relocated to a museum. The townsfolk believed that the spirits of Druid Ridge Cemetery haunted the very statue. They would back up their claims by showing that no grass grew around the statue, and at night it would appear to have red glowing eyes. And many other people suggest that the statue starts to move around the cemetery during 3 a.m. Locals have also laid down warnings such as if you pay Aggie a visit after dark and look into her eyes, you will go blind. And the most popular one is that if you sit on her lap at midnight, you'll pass away within 2 weeks. At number 9 spot, we have Chessie, basically Maryland's very own version of Nessie or the Loch Ness Monster. Just like the beast from Scotland, Chessie is a large serpent-like creature that lurks in the depths of Chesapeake Bay. Witnesses claim that the monster is around 25 to 40 feet long, and it uses its body as a sine curve to swim around the water. You know, sine, cosine, and tangent, you know. Sightings began in 1977 when the mass hysteria hit the locals, believing that the creature was truly out there, causing disappearances and drownings in the areas. Perhaps Chessie swam away from the area, or maybe it was just the 70s, you know? Everyone just wasn't probably that sober. Also, Steven Spielberg's Jaws came out in 1975, which could have added more paranoia that people had towards the water. At number 8 spot, we have Michael Zittle Jr. Michael Zittle Jr. is considered the Wizard of South Mountain, and with that type of title, you best believe he has something magical about him. Michael was one of the 10 children of German immigrants who settled on the mountain in Zittlestown, including his 6 siblings. The only thing different about the Zittle family, apart from the others, is that they kept many odd traditions and superstitions with them from Germany. The family practiced sorcery and would be found using hex bags. This prompted a young Michael Zittle to carry on the tradition, eventually becoming the town's healer and conjurer. He would garner the nickname Wizard Zittle, and just like any other wizard you see on popular television, Michael had his very own spell book. Although the original writings were in German, he eventually got a few translated and published into a real book. At number 7 spot, we have Spirits of Point Lookout Light. In southern Maryland, looking over the Chesapeake Bay is the Point Lookout Lighthouse. Back in the Civil War, the park around the lighthouse was one of the most feared and notorious Union prisoner of the war camps, where an estimated 4,000 Confederate prisoners passed away on these very grounds. And the worst part too is that even though it was originally designed to hold no more than 10,000 prisoners, at the end of the war, it held over 20,000 men. The overcrowding along with the terrible living conditions created hell on earth for many of the prisoners. Many would take their own lives, fall gravely ill, or even freeze till they passed away. Now the lighthouse in the area is claimed to be America's most haunted lighthouse, with one person claiming that it felt like you're at the end of the world. The first keeper of the lighthouse passed away after only 2 months of working there, and then another keeper claimed to hear door knocks every single time he lived there, but when he opened it up, he would see an apparition jumping down into the water below. At number 6 spot, we have Maud Dyer. Maud Dyer was considered to be one of the first women accused of witchcraft in Leonardtown. She was born in the 17th century when it was a time when people would accuse you of being a witch for literally anything.
She's made of wood, and therefore... Away!
Specifically, Maud Dyer was blamed for the plague of influenza that hit the whole entire town. Eventually, people began to rally up and set fire to her small hut in the woods. Although she managed to escape, her body was found frozen near a large rock. When the townsfolk removed her body, they noticed that an imprint of her right hand stayed on it, which led many locals to believe that she placed a curse on the town. And the craziest thing is that the rock with her imprint is still there to this day. Local legend has it that the rock itself is cursed, and that people who go near it or touch it will experience misfortune, including dizziness, fainting, illness, and a bunch of other bad things. They also say her spirit haunts the entire town to this day. Right in the hump of our list, we have Hager House. After standing for nearly 300 years, this old house in Hagerstown is believed to be infested with poltergeists and a whole load of other demons. This is because 13 people are said to have lost their lives in this very house. After it was handed down by its original owner, the house was used for rent during the Civil War all the way until World War II. However, in the 1840s, a large number of family members who lived in the house passed away. For example, Micah and Catherine Hammond's 4 children passed away in the span of 3 months in 1844. Just before this, in 1838, Alex and Susan Armstrong passed away along with their 3 infant children. So just know nothing good came out of this house, only bad things. When people visit the house today, they claim to see the spirit of a little girl who on some occasions is felt latching onto women as if they're tugging them not to leave the house. As well, there is said to be a lady in green who is looking out of the window and is walking around the halls at night. At number 4 spot, we have Crybaby Bridge. There's basically a Crybaby Bridge in every single state we cover, so it's no surprise it makes its way into our Maryland video. The Crybaby Bridge in Maryland is a popular yet horrifying spot located on the line between Prince George's and Anne Arundel's counties. The legend of this bridge goes that in 1970, a pregnant teenager was left abandoned by the baby's father. After she gave birth to the child, her family condemned her actions and tormented her with physical and emotional abuse. After realizing no one has anything nice to say about her, she decides to walk over to this bridge and with her baby, drowns the baby, then proceeds to jump in and take her own life as well. As the name suggests, you're able to hear the baby's faint crying underneath the bridge at night. Others claim claimed to see a set of headlights and a black sedan trailing them after they stopped at this bridge. At number 3 spot, we have Snallygaster. Don't be deceived by the odd name, this creature is one of the most confusing and terrifying creatures I've ever mentioned. Said to have resided in Frederick County, the Snallygaster is a dragon-like beast that is described as being a half reptile and a half bird that lives deep in the caves of South Mountain. Apart from its eye-popping looks, the beast is said to be responsible for stealing and eating farm animals and even children. The creature would be a silent killer and would swoop down from the skies, and before you would realize it would snatch you. The Snallygaster would consume its victims by completely draining all of its blood before taking you to its lair to consume you. The last sighting in Fredericktown occurred in March 1909 when 3 men fought the creature outside a railroad station for nearly an hour and a half before chasing it into the woods of Carroll County. However, who knows if this really went down, because I believe this creature of this caliber can easily take on 3 humans, but maybe that's just me. At number 2 spot, with the Anti-Tem battlefield. Combine advanced technology with unstructured tactics and poor decision making, and you have the Battle of Anti-Tem, otherwise known as the bloodiest single day in American history. For those who don't know, this is the battle that wounded or took the lives of around 23,000 soldiers, and remember, that's in one single day. The iconic Bloody Lane is a spot where both sides met and fought for their lives. It was a sunken part of the road, and considering it was where the most activity was, it's understandable that many bodies were stacked on this road, hence the name Bloody Lane. Gunfire and the smell of gunpowder have been reported in the area even when there's no one around. At number 1 spot, we have Coffin Rock. Coffin Rock, sometimes called Coffin Hill, was a large flat rock located in the Black Hills Forest in Maryland, about 20 minutes from Burkittsville. The local natives claim that before humanity, a dark energy lived in the area of the forest, so that when natives first entered the area, they were caught off guard, and as a result, a boy was kidnapped and then sacrificed on top of this Coffin Rock. Eventually, the warriors came together and fought back with their full force, but the dark energy was too strong and the entire tribe vanished without a trace. More people believed in this dark force after, in March of 1886, an 8-year-old boy, Robin Weaver, was reported missing in the area. Weeks later, he was found at Coffin Rock completely disemboweled. At number 10 spot, we have the Book of Flesh. The Boston Library has a very special book in its collection. It isn't what the text contains that makes this book unlike any other, it's what contains the text. In 1837, the notorious highwayman James Allen was sentenced to death. After his execution, his autobiography was bound in his own human flesh. If you hold the book, you'll notice the binding has a weird feel and a very bumpy texture. Now the book has a really long title. Narrative of the Life of James Allen, alias Jonas Pierce, alias James H. York, alias Burley Grove, the Highwayman, being his deathbed confession to the warden of the Massachusetts State Prison. Holy shit. As Allen could not read or write, his prison warden actually took dictation from Allen himself. Weirdly enough, James Allen actually asked him to have his own memoirs bound in his own skin. Number 9, the Hoosac Tunnel. Nicknamed the Bloody Pit, this railroad tunnel runs between North Adams and Florida. Construction began in 1851 and the tunnel wasn't completed until 1875. Low tech, unsafe conditions, noxious, volatile, flammable gases, and highly unstable explosives claimed the lives of over 190 men before the tunnel was even completed. The Hoosac Tunnel thus earned its nickname, the Bloody Pit. So laborers were dropping like flies throughout the excavation project, and maybe that would have been enough to win the Hoosac Tunnel its own ghost army. But the best ghosts don't come from workplace accidents, they come from murder. In March of that year, 3 explosive experts excavated more. Ned Brinkman, Billy Nash, and their drummer Ringo Kelly primed the charge and then sped off to a nearby safety bunker for the detonation. Unfortunately, Ringo messed up and he blew the nitro before his partners got to safety. According to the stories, Ned Brinkman and Billy Ash were buried alive under the tons of rock in the explosion. I think they were buried dead, but who knows. Either way, it's roused suspicion. Was this simply an accident like all the other deaths in this tunnel, or was this actually murder? Ringo Kelly disappeared soon after, and workers found him 10 days after the incident, 2 miles deep inside of the tunnel near where his partners had died. Ringo was dead, apparently strangled to death. Without any suspects, the case went cold, but the tunnel workers were convinced that Ringo had been revenged by the ghosts of his dead partners. At a number 8 spot, with the S.K. Pierce Mansion, Gardner. This mansion is so haunted, visitors are required to sign a waiver before entering the home. The mansion's website provides the following statement and explanation. Quote, "The entities in this mansion are extremely advanced and have demonstrated the unique ability to impose their will physically on guests. For this reason, a detailed injury waiver must be signed by each guest prior to experiencing the SK Haunted Victorian Mansion. Please do not behave in an antagonistic manner towards these entities at any time, as you may be placing yourself and other guests in danger." It has a history of death and tragedy that spans over 130 years. Built in the late 1880s by Sylvester Pierce, a wealthy local businessman, the mansion is reportedly haunted by numerous members of his own family, many of whom died in the home from illness or accident. The ghosts are known to get physical, and with some of the guests reporting being pushed down the stairs or being compelled towards open windows against their own will. Number 7, the Dogtown. Dogtown is an abandoned settlement near Gloucester that has a very creepy history. Originally established in 1693 by colonists, it was nearly emptied by 1812 due to pirate attacks and migration to larger towns. Vagrants and stray dogs began to take over the abandoned homes, and rumors began to brew that some of these had stayed in order to practice witchcraft. Strange booming sounds began to be heard coming from the town, and travelers reported flickering lights and figures in the surrounding forest. Thomasine Tammy Younger was known as the Queen of Witches and was frequently reported to have cursed teams on oxen, farmers, and their families for their refusal to pay their homage as they passed through the area. Just when you thought this place wasn't already maxing out its creepiness potential, we have a toy cemetery to consider. Sometime in the past few years, old dolls and stuffed animals have begun appearing in the section of Dogtown. Tied up baby dolls and grim looking animals feature prominently in the collection as well. While probably the work of mischievous teenagers, there's always a possibility that a less savory individual or group has begun using Dogtown for their own sinister purposes. Number 6, Haunted Forest. Spanning more than 5,000 acres, this forest is a publicly owned state park. While it has its own fair share of sunlight clearings and beautiful paths, Freetown Fall River State Forest also comes with a dark and mysterious past. While it sits at the heart of numerous supernatural rumors, plenty of its actual crimes and tragedies took place within its bounds. In 1978, the body of 15-year-old Mary Lou Aruda was found tied to a tree in this forest, the victim of a man named James M. Cater, who had kidnapped her from the nearby town of Raymond 2 months before. In 1980, the area was in the grip of the satanic panic, and reports from locals about the satanic cult activity in the woods reached the police department, reports which many believe were linked to the string of killings and apparent animal sacrifices at the time. Another landmark of the forest is the Assinet Ledge, which is the site of several ghost tales. Many say that they've seen indigenous spirits weaving in and out of the trees, the victims of a 17th century war against the Puritans. Another tale follows the tragedy of a young girl who would meet her forbidden lover on the ledge. After he stopped coming, she threw herself off the cliff to her death, leaving her spirit to linger beyond the rocks. In the hump of our list, we have Elizabeth Knapp. Just 20 years before the infamous Salem witch trials, there was a demonic possession case that was reported to be one of the earliest known cases we have today. Elizabeth Knapp was a 16-year-old girl who lived in Groton, Massachusetts. The story goes that Elizabeth Knapp was a servant at a household of Reverend Samuel Willard. He would be known for his clergies, where he would be frequently talking about the devil corrupting the youth. So when he started to notice Elizabeth showing those signs, he quickly took action. Elizabeth would begin to have emotional fits, hysterical laughing, and at one point she began to have hallucinations. At first he called the medical doctor, but when no cure could be found, they claimed that she was actually possessed. According to Knapp, the ordeal began when she was visited by the devil one night and made a pact with him, selling her soul in exchange for things like money and youth. When the priest began to talk to the girl, he noted that it was as if he was talking to the devil directly through the young girl's body. In 1672, Willard's journal entries about Knapp cease, and to this day nobody is sure what happened to this possessed young girl. At a number 4 spot, we have USS Salem. Nicknamed the Sea Witch, the USS Salem is supposedly one of the most haunted vessels afloat. In August of 1953, there were 113 recorded earthquakes in Greece. The worst of these was on August 12th, when a quake measuring 7.2 on the surface wave magnitude scale shook the Ionian Island region. With no medical facilities of any consequence, ships from several navies sprung into action. The largest of these ships was Salem. While no records exist of the number of civilians she treated over the course of her 4-day stay, the number is estimated to be well over 1,000, and of those 1,000, many suffered mortal injuries. Hundreds died on board, and some rooms in the ship were stuffed to the ceiling with corpses of the deceased. People who have visited claim that the many spirits of the unfortunate souls never left Salem. They are still on board, some who are looking for their loved ones, some who are looking for their saviors. Number 3, Spider Gate Cemetery. Of all Massachusetts hauntings, this one is probably the most terrifying. This place is officially known as Quaker Cemetery, but unofficially known as Spider Gate Cemetery, or the 8th gate to hell. The stories that circulate around are very extreme, including the fact that the gates are one of the series of portals to hell itself. Also, satanic rituals are regularly held within the stone walls, and also someone has committed suicide in a tree near its own gates. Others refer to the main gate as the 8th gate to hell, saying that if you pass through it, the gate will take your soul to meet the devil himself. Regardless, when you pass through the gate and walk to the middle of the cemetery, you will find a barren patch of land where no grass grows. Its 4 corners are marked with cement blocks, and this area is known as the altar and is where the original worshipping house used to stand. According to legend, the house was used for satanic worship and to call upon various ghosts, demons, and evil spirits, and even more. Being a place of sacrifice, nothing will now grow on this land. Number 2, the Gloucester Harbor Sea Serpent. Well, are you surprised there's another Loch Ness in Massachusetts as well? I'm not. Well, there's one in every single state it seems. The Gloucester Sea Serpent is reportedly seen around and off the coast of Gloucester and Cape Ann area in Massachusetts. The earliest alleged sighting of such creature was off Cape Ann and was recorded in 1638 by John Jocelyn. Occasional sightings continued over the centuries and into the 20th century. The heyday of sightings began in August 1817 and continued into 1818 to 1819. Locals made sworn statements to a local justice of the peace that they've seen a strange twisting serpent-like creature in the waters of Gloucester Harbor, because hundreds and possibly even thousands of people even saw the creature. Combined with the Linnean Society's report, this serpent is one of the most well-documented sea serpents ever. Number 1, Danvers State Lunatic Asylum. This mental hospital opened in 1878 and was the birthplace of the infamous prefrontal lobotomy. This medical procedure would involve a long rod which would go through the corner of a patient's eye. Then it would be wiggled around in order to sever important neural connections. Conditions at the hospital were also terrible. There are reports that some patients were left chained to beds for days, or were even allowed to wander the halls covered in their own filth. The hospital closed in 1992 and many of the buildings were converted into apartments. However, mysterious fires began to break out in these apartments in 2007. The original facade of the main Kirkbridge building, in addition to the cemeteries, several barricaded tunnels, and the brick shell of the administration and the D and G wings remain. The ruins of the hospital were used as a setting for the 2001 horror film Session 9 as well. At a number 10 spot, we have the Torch Lake Monster. This one is pretty much well known all over Michigan, but for those who don't know, the tale of the Torch Lake Monster dates back to the early 1960s and 70s. Obviously, it takes place in Torch Lake, which is located in North Michigan, and it also is the second largest lake in the state. A fisherman and coach by the name of Dave Foley is credited with spotting the creature first and telling the stories of it since he worked by the lake for a while. Legend goes that the giant creature has a lizard's body, the head of a cat, one brown eye, and one blue eye, along with slimy green skin. The lake is approximately 285 feet deep, which makes what lies underneath much more scary and worrisome. Nighttime is when this creature is said to arise from the depths. At this time, many swimmers and boats go missing, only to wash ashore with no evidence of its demise. At a number 9 spot, we have the singing sands of Beat Gris. Located just past Lac La Belle, Michigan, is a beautiful white sandy beach known as Beat Gris. In a direct translation, this means gray beast, and that's because a large gray creature was said to have inhabited the area many years ago, but that's not even the story I'm going to talk about. Local legends claim that the pure white sand of the beach sings by pressing down your palms on it, or it barks when you strike it. The sound is said to be the voice of a Native American maiden who lost her lover when he drowned in the Great Lakes, and now she calls him on shore. The sand is said to lose its magical singing power when it's removed from the beach. Now visitors claim to hear the singing sounds, but as many try to bring the sound back home, they are met with years of unlimited bad luck, which lead many to bring it back to the beach to allow it to sing again. Other than sand that makes sounds, at a number 8 spot with the Belle Isle's Lady in White. In Detroit, Michigan, there's an island called Belle Isle. This 982-acre island is used for picnics, hikes, and home of the only marble lighthouse. Other than that, everything else on this island is shrouded in mystery and up for speculation. Legend of the island follows the story of a chief's daughter and a haunting bridge. The chief was concerned that his daughter's beauty would attract vast amounts of suitors, so to combat this, this, he made a deal with the snake goddess of the island. The chief asked the goddess to protect his daughter. The goddess would agree, but not for nothing. She would ask for the daughter to live out the rest of her days on the island to protect it, never being able to leave it. And to this day, the daughter is said to stay on this island and walk it, with many visitors reporting that she would try to lure them into the forest by telling them that she is looking for someone and just needs help. She supposedly takes her victims to the bridge to drown them, and it's said that if you go on this bridge and honk 3 times, she will appear just before your eyes. At number 7 spot, with the Nain Rouge. It's said that since the city of Detroit was founded in Michigan, bad luck has befallen the area. This is all because of the devilish red imp known as the Nain Rouge had cursed the entire city. Local folklore suggests that the Detroit's founder, Antoine de la Mothe Cadillac, was warned by a fortune teller that he would come face to face with the Nain Rouge and to treat him with the utmost respect and attention. Except this information came straight this ear and right out the other, because when he finally met with this creature, he hit it with his crane and told it to stay out of his way. This is when the angry Nain Rouge cursed the city of Detroit and Cadillac. Shortly after this, Cadillac would lose his fortune and move back to France, but misfortune still occurred in the city. It's said that in all disastrous events that happened in Detroit, the Nain Rouge could be spotted just before all of them. For example, in 1763, 50 British soldiers perished from Native Americans, after which the Nain Rouge could be seen dancing in the aftermath in joy. Then in the surrender of the war in 1812, the Nain was blamed again for its presence. It also been seen during Detroit's riots of 1967 and 1976's ice storm that caused electricity to go out for days. At a number 6 spot, with the Masonic Temple. Currently standing as the largest Masonic temple in the world, it also stands as one of the most haunted places in all of Michigan. The temple, designed by George D. Mason, is an imposing Gothic structure at the corner of Bagg Street, later Temple Street, and 2nd Avenue, across from Cass Park. The temple has over 1,000 rooms, secret stairways, and concealed passages, but unfortunately Mason would go a little too far in this construction, where it would cause him to go bankrupt, eventually losing his wife in the process. His depression slowly kicked in, and then he would jump off the roof of this temple to his death. And to this day, security guards claim to see old George's ghost climbing those steps to the rooftop. Visitors also reported many noises such as doors and windows being slammed shut. They also see moving shadows and experience cold spots all around the area, all while feeling as if they're being watched by something. Right in the hub of our list, we have the Michigan Triangle. Well, guess Michigan has their own version of Bermuda's Devil Triangle, and it contains just as much unexplained phenomena as Bermuda. The triangle goes from Manawak, Wisconsin to Ludington to Benton Harbor in Michigan. It was in early spring 1937 when Captain Donner was just managing his freighter ship called the O.S. McFarland through these icy waters. He was so tired, so he decided to go to sleep and asked for one of the crewmates to wake him up when they approached shore. As they did, they noticed his room was locked, so they looked around, but nothing. They then kicked the door down and found that he vanished with no signs whatsoever. Now the triangle claims the lives of many ships and planes just like Bermuda. People have also cited the O.S. McFarland, but as they try to get a closer look, it disappears into the waters. An odd thing about this place is when divers go to check the wreckages of ships and planes, they notice that everything is still intact, including the bodies of the deceased and the ship as a whole. This is by far the scariest triangle because there is no way around it other than land. So basically there's no point in traveling in Michigan's Great Lakes. At our number 4 spot is Hell's Bridge. Back in the early 1900s, an old deranged man named Elias Frisk led a group of kids to the bridge and proceeded to murder each and every single one of them, slowly throwing them into the river below. Eventually he was caught and hung by the towns. Before he passed away, he made a confession claiming that he did this because he was possessed by the devil and they told him to do it. To this day, a lot of visitors to the bridge hear the screams and the cries from the children just before they pass away. People have also said that when they get home from this place, they find bruises on their body as if someone was reaching out to grab them or hit them. The worst part is that if you walk on this bridge at night, you can feel hands below you as if they're grabbing you from the river below. And at the end of the bridge, you might encounter Elias as a dark figure with glowing eyes, so you won't miss him in the dead of night. In more lesser known news, apparently you're able to sell your soul to the devil by meeting the devil in the middle of this bridge. I mean, it's called Hell's Bridge, what else did we expect? At our number 3 spot, we have the Dogman. The Dogman is described as a 7-foot tall, amber-eyed, bipedal, canine-like creature, and he has the head of a dog with the body and torso of a human. Ever since its original sighting in 1887, many more sightings were spotted all over Michigan. It's primarily spotted in the northwestern quadrant of the Lower Peninsula. Back to its original sighting back in 1887. This is when the Dogman was discovered by 2 lumberjacks who saw this creature in the distance. Things got a little more concerning when in 1936, 1937, Robert Forney was attacked by 5 wild dogs, describing that of one of the dogs allegedly stood up like a bipedal and was significantly larger than all the other dogs. This legend got more popular when disc jockey Steve Cook recorded a song called The Legend, which describes the Michigan's Dogman. Although the artist claims it was made for an April Fool's joke, this kickstarted the entire legend, and sightings of the Dogman would only rise after the song was released. At a number 2 spot with Melonhead. Locals' fear of humanoids called the Melonheads. First theorized in the 1970s, Melonheads are said to be completely bald with misshapen bulbous heads, deformed arms and legs, teeth like daggers, and luminous red eyes. Legend goes that Melonheads reside around Felt Mansion, which is home to Dora Felt, who is an American inventor. The Melonheads were said to be the children suffering from hydrocephalus, which causes your head to expand in some cases. They were located at the Junction Insane Asylum near the home, and it's said that they endured months and months of abuse, and that one day they decided to escape and run into the forests of Michigan, where they became animal-like and very feral. Many of these Melonheads are said to be looking for the doctor who failed to care for them in order to take his life. At a number 1 spot, we have Eloy Psychiatric Hospital. Located in Westland, Michigan, it was named after Detroit's postmaster Elois Davik. In 1839, it started as a poorhouse and a farm where the poor, the sick, and the needy would go for shelter and work. As time went on, the poorhouse transitioned into a psychiatric asylum and hospital. The buildings were self-sufficient, even having their own police. They were even one of the first hospitals in the world to use x-rays for diagnosis, so at least one good thing came out of here. At its peak, the place housed over 10,000 patients and over 2,000 staff members. After its closure in 1984, the hospital's abandoned grounds are said to have a few patients still left inside of it. Ghost patients, that is. There have been reports of people finding medical waste and other strange items. Some have reported finding jars containing human body parts, as well as documents outlining strange medical procedures. At number 10 spot, we have the Palmer House Hotel. In Sauk Center, Minnesota lies the Palmer House Hotel. This hotel stands on the grounds of the city's first hotel, named the Sauk Center Hotel, which ended up burning down in June 1900. When the Palmer House was built the next year in 1901 by Christina and Ralph Palmer, it served as a shelter for distant travelers and a meeting place for many of the locals of the town. However, every single year there would be more and more reports of strange occurrences happening inside of the hotel. Guests and staff alike would initially notice cold spots associated with the feeling of dread, as well as doors closing on their own, but eventually various people would report disembodied voices and tugs from the ghost of a little boy seen running in the hallways. This place was investigated by American paranormal television series The Dead Files, and during the investigation, psychic medium Amy Allen confronted a dark presence attempting to take control of her physical being. The room with the most activity is said to be room 22, where this one lady says that she made contact with a ghost child named Thomas, but you can book any other rooms if you don't want to encounter a ghost. Your choice. At a number 9 spot, we have the Kensington Runestone. This slab of stone looking like straight out of the Bible was allegedly found somewhere in central Minnesota during 1898. It was found by Olaf Oman, who was a Swedish archaeologist who found it after removing a tree in his farm. The stone had Viking runes, and one of the texts read the year 1362, which ultimately suggested that Scandinavians arrived in North America 130 years before Christopher Columbus did in 1492. The text talks about a journey to discover the Vinland, which is considered to be North America, and considering it was found in Minnesota, it seems like they completed their task. So is this finally solid evidence to suggest that someone discovered America before Columbus? Well, not really. Many people believe this is a great big hoax, especially considering the fact that the family who discovered it had a book about runic scripts. And when more research was done, the language used inside of the stone was pretty modern. However, if this was true, this would be very groundbreaking news. At number 8 spot, we have Dead Man's Trail. The small town of Thief River Falls in northern Minnesota is known for 2 major rivers, the Red Lake and the Thief. These 2 rivers meet up within the town, and during the early years, it affected a lot of the development within the town. Many native tribes would battle for the land, with eventually the Ojibwa coming out on top and forcing the Dakota tribe out of the area. After years of conflict, this town eventually started to have more reports of the supernatural, with the most being reported during a hike in the Dead Man Trail. One story goes that the trail was being used as a hiding spot for a man wanted for murder, while another story talks about a Native American woman who was trying to escape from people chasing her. She ran as fast as she could, but her newborn baby would just slow her down, causing her to hide the baby beside the river. When she went back to get the infant, she discovered it had been carried away from the river. Hikers have reported witnessing her ghostly apparition, hunting for her infant to this day. At number 7 spot, we have the Mounds Theater. Built in 1922, this theater was once used as a venue for live entertainment and silent movies. While it had many good moments, there are many accidents inside of the theater. However, there are no reported deaths inside. Eventually, it would get closed down in 1967, then reopened once again in 2001. This little mix of accidents with abandonment is the perfect recipe for ghosts to live in, and this is the case made by many staff and visitors of the theater. Late night workers and janitors have reported being physically grabbed by a ghost, and others report a ghost named Red who throws things at women, and also a young girl has been reported wearing a pink dress bouncing a ball on stage when no one else is around. At number 6 spot, we have the Lake Pepin Serpent. Here comes another iteration of the Loch Ness Monster that lurks the depths below the US. Introducing the Pepe Monster, or PP Monster, whatever floats your boat, but I guarantee this beast won't. As it's mentioned from the name, this beast is located in Lake Pepin, which is basically the border between the states of Wisconsin and Minnesota. This monster became more popular in the media after businessman Larry Nielsen offered a $50,000 reward for finding this creature. After years, no one has had solid evidence of the creature. But Larry himself is convinced it exists out there and only wants to pay the money to see the creature one last time again. This is because 11 years ago, before he put the bounty out, he spotted a quote 200 feet long and 2 feet high creature going upstream. In the hump of our list, we have the Wendigo. This devil of a creature is a well-known one to many, but many don't know that the first original sightings of the Wendigo happened in the state of Minnesota. Wendigos are said to be as tall as 15 feet and very slender-like. However, don't be deceived, because they are said to be very strong monsters that have a never-ending desire to eat and kill humans. The legend states that a person can become a Wendigo if they decide to take part in cannibalism or any other heinous acts of humanity. These bad deeds essentially turn you into this monster, and this creature can possess you and even turn you into one itself if the person is greedy or weak enough. There are multiple myths talking about what Wendigos look like, but majority of them describe them to look like an animal but very tall, with a skull as a head, long legs, and their whole body covered in hair and drenched in blood. They are also said to be very fast and have super hearing with an amazing sense of smell, and in some cases they are said to walk on water, but they're not Jesus, remember. So be very cautious next time you try to camp in the forests of Minnesota. At number 4 spot, we have Crazy Annie's Bridge. 95 miles out of Rochester, Minnesota is a bridge known as Crazy Annie's Bridge, and it's also said to be one of the most haunted bridges in all of America. According to hauntedhoville.com, this bridge is located in Henderson, Minnesota on 270th Street, just in case you guys want to take a quick visit. But I guarantee that's probably not the best idea. This bridge in particular is said to be haunted by a mother named Annie, who was reportedly from the early 1900s. Story goes that Annie lived in the area during the time of World War I. She fell in love with a man and started a family with 3 kids. But eventually the man would end up going overseas to fight in the war. And unfortunately, after months, the man would never end up returning. This is when the woman would go insane and eventually take her 3 children and drown them in this nearby bridge. And ever since, it's said that you can hear the cries of all 3 children and even the mother on the bridge if you decide to go on it in the middle of the night. Number 3, Hibbing High School. Hibbing High in Minnesota is not your typical average school building. Here, the staircases are marble, the railings are brass, and the art walls hold the whole almost medieval design together. The auditorium was modeled after the Capitol Theater, which is a sight in itself. And when Bob Dylan was still Robert Zimmerman and a student at Hibbing High, he performed on the auditorium stage during a talent show. But even with star performers and a stunning design, it's a lone seat inside of the auditorium that attracts the most attention from everyone. The story goes that the first stage manager named Bill was employed at the school from 1927 to the late 1960s when he passed away after a chandelier fell on his head. Rumors soon arose that Bill really never left his favorite seat in the theater named J47. In the early 90s, Chuck Perry, who at the point had been stage manager since 1979, took a series of photographs of the auditorium after a woman reported feeling a cold chill as soon as she walked around J47 row. And lo and behold, one of the photographs taken with the Polaroid camera showed a man sitting in J47 wearing formal clothes and a top hat, and you could reportedly see right through him. So is this ghost? Who knows? At number 2 spot, we have the Hairy Man of Vergas Trail. In west central Minnesota, in a small town named Vergas, is the tale of the Hairy Man legend. And no, we're not talking about some random dad who happened to have a little too much hair on their back. This legend has existed in the region for the past 6 decades, and that's only because the reports are not done happening, and every single year it seems like there's a new experience with the hairy man of Virgus Trail. The man is described as being 8 feet tall, having long hair, smelling like complete garbage, and always walking barefoot. In other words, you would probably think this guy was a more civilized Bigfoot than anything else. Many believed he was just an old homeless man living in the woods and didn't want anyone near his land. However, the hairy man gained more notoriety after a man named Ken Zitsaw returned back from driving in the woods with dents in his car hood. He claimed it was the hairy man. Others have reported other attacks regarding the hairy man, but in the end, it's not confirmed if he really exists or not, or if he's just a figment of our imagination. At number 1 spot, we have the Glen Sheen Mansion. Minnesota's most notorious killing occurred at the Glen Sheen Mansion in Duluth. Elizabeth Condon, the heiress who inherited the home, was murdered in her bed in 1977. The body of her nurse was discovered on the Great Staircase, and the home, which is now held by the University of Minnesota Duluth, is said to be the most haunted in the state. After hours, employees have heard screaming, and some claim to see a white lady dressed in really dark clothing wandering throughout the entire mansion.